All right, folks, we are live and good to go. I will pass it off to you.
All right, thank you. All right, then I will call to order the August 18th meeting of the Lyon Township Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting at 7:05 p.m. Please let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. There we go. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the
and the
republic
republic
for which it
stands
stands,
one
one nation,
under God,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
All righty. Roll call. I am here. Lynn, Jenny's here. Chris called and said he had just gotten out of a meeting and hopes to be joining us shortly. And Aaron is here as well. I don't know if we can technically count her votes, but I'd like her to hop on and start participating at least. So,
When's the board meeting for her approval?
that would be, where's my calendar here? Looks like September 7th.
Okay.
So it'll be through for our next meeting, but we missed the timeline, the way that we had a late meeting in last month relative to theirs. So, all right, up first here, approval of the July minutes. Did everybody get a chance to look over those, and are there any changes?
Would you mind throwing them up real quick?
Yeah, sure. Oh, Alex, can you turn on my screen sharing?
It should be there for you now.
All right, thanks. Okay. All right, let me switch this over to Zoom here.
Okay.
Oh, did you have something there?
No,
Okay.
gonna say it looks good. Okay, looks good to me.
Okay. Anybody want to move the approval here?
I motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting, which was
Sorry, July 29th.
July 29th, 2020.
Okay. That's correct. All right. And again, we have to do all the roll calls for these with the electronic meeting. So, Lynn,
Yep.
Jenny,
Yes.
me, yep. Okay, minutes are approved. Alrighty, coming up then, oh, right, sorry, I should have not ended the sharing on that. We've got approval of the agenda. Did anyone have any additions or deletions here? I do actually, I do want to talk about the ice rink. Do we want that under unfinished or new? I guess unfinished.
Yeah, it's from last year.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it here. No, I should put it at the end. Sorry. All right, so I guess I'll move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second that.
Okay, Jenny. Yeah, Jenny,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yeah.
me, yes. Okay, agenda is approved as amended. Do we have any general announcements or communications?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. We do not have any presentations scheduled. So at this point, we'll open up the call to the public. I'll let this sit for about 30 seconds just in case there's anybody YouTubing with the delay. And during that, I will check our little feedback form and make sure no one submitted anything. All right, we had no online comment submissions, and it looks like we don't have anybody calling in, so we will close the call to the public and move on to item 9, items sent to the admin team and township board. There we have the, I guess the west baseball field usage, our signage things. Chris, do you have an update there?
Yeah, so after talking about it with Brian, we just took it straight to Michelle without going to the board or the township meeting. She's ordering 2 signs that basically just say no dogs allowed on the athletic fields. So we're gonna have Richard or Mark post those as soon as they get in.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I happened to be at a event at the high school and noticed that's basically what they have is a sign to that effect.
Yep.
Very good. Moving on then to unfinished business, unless you had any other updates, Chris. No. Okay. Again, we've got this on here as a placeholder in case anything moves, but I've not heard any movement or updates on anything with the 11 Mile and Milford Road Park. The 10B, the disc golf course payment box, that I actually do have a little update. I talked to Melanie and they did go ahead and order a replacement box. So that should be coming in somewhat soon. And then the plan, like we discussed earlier, is to install it at the base of the drive instead of up on top so that it's a little easier for them to keep an eye on. I did go up to the park today actually and had checked, and people are actually still trying to pay without the box being there. So it should be worth doing this. The park website item, I know that was going to be Chris Checker's item to kind of bring back some ideas on. So since he is not on yet, we'll move ahead. And we will go into the park survey update. Chris, do you want to share? Do you want me to?
Yeah, if you want to share, that'd be great. But hopefully, you all got a link to the SurveyMonkey version of it today.
Here we go. So the idea here is just look through this. Did everybody get this link? And
Yes.
all right. So yeah, I guess in that case, did anybody have any comments or concerns about the final format here?
Thought it looked good.
Yeah, and line item 2, if you want to put a space between reason and for, these are simple formatting things.
Sorry, which
Yeah.
one, Aaron?
Reason and for, if you want to put a space between there on line item 2.
I'll note that and change
Okay.
it before the final. There were a few of those when I pasted them in. I thought I caught them all, but I'll
Sure.
read through it again.
And on number 3, it's just, do the existing parks, facilities in Lyon Township meet your needs? Do you want to say comment, why or why not? Or do you think it matters at that point to get extra feedback?
I'm happy to add that.
Up to you. Just a thought.
You don't have to add comments, Robert.
Okay.
I can write it down and change it for the final.
Very good.
I don't think that's too big of a change at all.
Um,
The big question that we wanted to basically pose to you guys, is this something that you wanted to be embedded in the parks? We think we can embed it in the parks website page of Lyon Township. It can also be a separate link that goes straight to the SurveyMonkey version. And so if we can embed it, we just want to know if that's what you guys want, or if you would just prefer to a link sent via email and social media to a version like this.
I think I would go with, if we can embed it, great. Let's have an embedded copy on one of the parks pages. But I assume we can also use the link, because I'd like to then have the link featured possibly elsewhere, like in a news post. Hopefully we can get it into the September, and I can talk to Holly about getting it included in the library email newsletter as well.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure that we're able to do that. If we can, we absolutely will.
If it can't be embedded, then obviously just a link on our page as well. But
No problem at all.
There was some talk about social media conversation.
Yeah. Yes. Good point, Aaron. We'll have to. I believe. Does Tina is the one that controls the township social media channels, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
So we can just approach her about sharing it, and she probably would be okay to share it on the DDA website. And she's very active in the Lyon or South Lyon community discussion pages, and I'm sure she'd be willing to share it there too.
Do you think it'd be okay if she allowed that link to be shared as well? I know you have to get permissions in that regard. So if she was able, other citizens were able to reshare it, we can make sure that that happens as well. Like on the South Lyon, what's happening in South Lyon website, there seems to be a lot of action there. I think you'd probably get a lot of feedback in that.
Yeah, I don't think that should be a problem.
Yeah, I see Tina make comments in there on occasion, so I don't see why she wouldn't put this out there or couldn't put this out there.
Good.
All right. Excellent. So I think we're all set and good with this then, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for getting that put together, Chris. Um,
Will we get some
You
sort of
know-
notification when it's posted?
I mean, I'm happy to send out an email to the group to let everyone know when it's live and can be shared. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure.
Very good. All right. On to 10E, capital improvement plan. Sorry, I did not have this brought up earlier, so one second while I find it. But the draft was sent to the Planning Commission for their meeting last week, and they decided they needed some more time to review it. So that actually gave us a little bit of a reprieve to review the actual 2020 copy instead of the 2017 copy we were looking at before. Chris, have there been any changes from anybody since the version that was posted in the Planning Commission packet? Do you know?
Sorry, I was muted. No. And I also sent you just a scanned version of it, probably last week sometime, maybe the week before, a marked up version directly from Brian.
How did it come from, like maybe like a weird like scanner email address and not yours? Because I didn't see that.
It might have. I might have just forwarded it from the scan.
Okay.
Let's see. The point being that it really hasn't changed since you talked to Brian about it. There haven't been a lot of additions to it since you guys talked to him, or any, to be honest.
Okay. Well, yeah, all right, I can't find that, but I have the packet copy, so we will go ahead and do that. All right, is this up for everybody now?
Yes.
Very good. So this gets broken down into different categories of topics. And so our section obviously is here. I don't believe, I don't remember there being really anything in the other categories that would be relevant to us. So the way this is laid out here, we've got the list of the projects along with their costs and projected timelines, and then a little description. What I don't remember is how this rank was determined. Chris, do you know how that was done, or was that just a Brian thing?
Yeah, so I wasn't in on it, but my best estimation is that it was probably determined between Brian, Leslie, and the three elected officials who are present in the office every day. That they ranked the projects here according to priority.
I can't tell the ranking, but it could be a carryover from when we did ranking at the last capital improvement, which was many years ago. Back when Chris, I'm forgetting his
Dusen.
last name. Pardon me?
Dusen?
Yes. He had us go through the list, and we ranked what we thought is first, second, third, fourth, fifth on down the line. And then, to be honest, he put some odd little formulas together that created 5.2s and 4s and all sorts of things of that nature. So, oh, I can't. Can you zoom in again?
All right. There we go. Yep.
Oh, there we go. So I mean, the numbers are different, but I'm kind of wondering if maybe they looked at our original master plan that had some rankings of these items in there. Because it looks like they threw other things in there that weren't part of our necessarily, plan, which obviously is the Huron Valley Trail, Safety Town, but things like the Atchison Park property acquisition. Some other items were, it looks like it's a mix. So maybe they do some of our ranking with their ranking and then sort of created a new ranking.
Yeah. So you brought up the Huron Valley Trail thing. That is if I'm not mistaken, yeah, it's resurfacing the existing area of the path that's now, I believe, a little over 20 years old.
I'm surprised they kept the community center.
I was going to comment on that as well, because I thought that had been something that was kind of nixed from the plans.
It's like beating the dead horse even deader. And do they have a dollar amount for that?
They do not, and yet they had it slated as 2024, which...
Yeah. I mean, are they going to come up with about $20 million for that? Because that's how much it's going to cost.
Yeah.
So I really don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, because the last time that this was seriously looked at, we were talking that kind of price tag and with inflation.
That was based on when I was on the community center committee that had the 3 municipalities together, which was probably broken up maybe 5 to 8 years ago. And the cost of that building, which was not extravagant, was between $15 and $20 million. So tack on another 5 years worth of inflation, you're probably looking at a building with a pool and fitness area, splash pad, and other amenities. You're looking probably at least $20 million. I mean, and keep in mind too, I mean, the bonds that we just passed for the school does have a more robust pool at Southline High School with a kind of a side we're calling like a therapy pool, but it's set aside with warmer water for recreation. Granted, it doesn't have, slides or zero entry or any of that kind of stuff, but it still has a function of providing the community a place to, for swim lessons or open swim and things of that nature. Definitely not like Milford High School, but again, Milford High School is, has lost money on theirs. They don't make money on community pools, and they're looking to close it, perhaps permanently, because they just don't make money.
Right.
So I don't know that I'm necessarily.
I guess, is anyone opposed to recommending that we just take this off for the time being?
Robert, what you're asking is do we want to remove this based on the fact that nothing's going to be going on this year, or are you asking for the 5-year forecast?
Well, I mean, the document, the intent here is for that 5-year kind of planning range, but I mean, I find it very difficult to believe that within that time period we would be seriously considering something like this again.
I'm with you, and I would rather get rid of it, because then the suggestion of a community center takes away from anything else that we want to do, like the 11-mile park, at least in my opinion, because then you could say, well, we can put a pool in at the 11-mile park, or we can do this over here, do that over there. And if we're really going to go after a community center, then, let's make it a community center, I guess. That's just my 2 cents. But I mean, if people feel strongly about keeping it on here for the 5-year plan, I understand on the ICP it has to be there so we can line itemize it. But my thought too is that after talking with Chris the other day, if we still recommend a community center and the board approves it, we can get it line itemized then also. So it's not a total loss if we remove it. Am I right on that, Chris?
Yeah, that's not wrong. I think just in general, it's important to point out that not everything on here that's on the CIP is going to be actually purchased, right? It's a point in time to evaluate priorities from different departments and hopefully make a plan to capture them. And so if a community center is something that is aspirational, now's the time to note it, with the understanding that perhaps they will come up with a plan to fund it, and for some they won't. But I wouldn't just leave something off just because you feel they're not going to fund it. If it's something that is important to this board, and they want mentioned and considered, then I would leave it.
I guess my thought is I don't want any thunder taken away from things like the 11 Mile Park because people see a $20 million community center. I guess I'd rather more interest and excitement and thought go into all of the other items on this list. The trail, the 11 Mile Park that's been sitting out there that every day I hear people, teasing, why bother having a sign up? Nothing's happening. If they see this in here, maybe they'll actually think that something's going to happen, as opposed to like making fun of the township on social media, for the sign still being up. I just think that a community center is just way too pipe in the sky. And I don't want to get people excited about it and take away excitement from other things that I think are much more realistic and reasonable.
What I would add to that too is that you were on the board, Jen, and when I was showing up to those meetings, even adding the resident total that we have now, it can't be supported by one community. It's just too big. That's why they had that board trying to get it past a few years back.
Right.
So even having this just on our thing, to Jen's point, and that's what I was trying to advocate a minute ago, she said it even better. It does steal thunder from other things, in that. So personally speaking, I'd just like to remove it. And then that way it's not a false promise on here. And like I said, if we got an infusion of money or a donation from somebody rich and they wanted to do this for us, great. We can always go and get it line itemized by the township board at a meeting and take it from there. I mean, it's not quite that simple, but in theory, that's what we would have to start out by doing.
All right, so let's just do a quick keep it or take it off with everybody, and then we'll go on to another item. And once we get through all of these, we'll have one kind of vote at the end to say, here's our recommended changes. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Okay, so Lynn, keep the community center on or get rid of it?
Doesn't matter to me either way. I can go either way. I'll go with whatever the majority wants to do.
Okay, Aaron?
I say take it off.
Jenny?
Off.
Chris?
Take it off, please.
Okay, I feel the same, so. Let's jump back up to the top here. The Atchison Park Trail improvements, that is referring to the widening and the completion of the loop.
Robert, do you
Yep.
recall, can you zoom back up there? I think it had an estimated cost of $150,000. It says it's based on engineer's estimate, but when we actually costed that out, wasn't it closer to like 250 or 300?
I would have to go back and look, but I know it was higher than the estimates. I don't
Yeah.
believe that we could get this done right now for 150.
That's my concern too. I mean, I don't want numbers in here that are unrealistic. I mean, because that's basically how we got zapped when we actually were moving forward with it.
Right.
At the 150 estimate, and then when the bid came in, it just got totally smacked down. So
The 150 may have been
guess,
the
you know,
base
if we-
bid with
have a
just
bid,
part of
let's
it.
put a number in there that's similar to that.
Robert, I'd like to add something to this. They were, and you were present for the meeting at the planning commission meeting and both at the township meeting. I didn't know this either. Maybe the rest of the board doesn't, but in order to do any widening of the path or to alter it in any shape, form, or fashion, even to have it regraded, or I should say recapped, we have to get approval through who owns it now, Republic, GFI, whoever it is owns it. So we had had to get approval from them. And I know that she's very,
They had approved, it was my understanding that they had approved the engineering designs prior to bidding.
so then we had this prior to the bidding, right?
Yes.
Okay, and would those same engineering standards be met in today's forecast? Meaning, is it so far removed that there wouldn't be any changes that we would need to go back and have them relook at?
I doubt that there have been significant enough shifts since
Okay.
that time to have to re-engineer it.
All right.
No, because, I mean, we were at a bid level, like if we accepted the bid, it would have been built. So all the approvals had gone through, all the engineering had gone through. It's just, I don't like this significantly under bid number. I mean, if the bid was 250, let's say, estimated cost is 250, kind of knowing that another couple of years, inflation is going to pop it up there. But I don't want to get to the point where we get all excited and we think we're actually going to move forward with the project, but it comes in almost double the estimate, and it just isn't going to happen. So I'd prefer that the numbers, especially with this particular project, because we did get the bids, if we could use that as the basis number that we're putting into this CIP plan.
Yeah. So is anyone not on board with leaving this on here, but updating the costs to reflect the most recent bids that we had received?
This is a rarity, but I agree with Jenny 2 times in a row. I think that it should be, I think exactly what she said. I think that we should leave it on there, especially if this is going to be the first thing that we want off our wish list. And I think it should be updated with a more accurate number.
Okay.
I do remember, if I'm recalling correctly, to add more background to the story, wasn't this a rarity though, that it was up so high because of the prices in that? We were having something else being done also, and they put it on hold.
There were higher than normal asphalt and aggregate prices at the time. Yes.
Yeah, that's what it was.
But it's still an expensive endeavor because it's a relatively small scale project for the difficulty of bringing the equipment into the site.
Right.
Well, again, I'm just speaking out loud
But
here.
yeah.
I would just say, like she said, I was going to suggest the same thing, remove the cost, because I knew that it was at one point higher, but that's even a benefit to us if we can put that higher cost on there and it goes lower, because if this is the first thing off the wish list that we want, and it's
I would rather plan for a higher cost and have it come in under budget than.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's going to go lower just because of the difficulty of the site. And to be honest, I mean, the contractors are busier than ever right now. So being high demand, they can demand the higher costs and the higher prices for their bids.
Yeah.
And I see that adjusting over the next couple of years.
Yeah. So, Chris Checker's comment of this being the first thing on our list made me come up with a question for Chris Madigan. Do we know how the order is determined here? Because there's this project number order over here, and there's the rank, and it doesn't necessarily, so it's not like they were sorted by rank number. And this line also isn't necessarily the oldest of these ideas. So I guess I'm wondering how they got in this order, and if the order at all matters, or if it's just an ID number and there's no implication of priority to it.
I don't know how they were put in this order, and I don't know that they're necessarily put in an order of how they'll be pursued in this specific table. So honestly, if I'm happy to ask and send you guys a group email, and if they're reordered in an order that is, what's most likely to be pursued, I can send that out to you guys too.
Because I mean, this one is a high priority one to me because it's improving and correcting a amenity that we know is getting use.
I mean, I'm going to assume that the higher the rank number is a higher priority, especially based on the fact I've heard scuttlebutt that the Huron Valley Trail is going to happen.
Yes.
I think we might have gotten like neighbor shamed into it since the city did something. And the fact that looking at PK 0007, the property acquisition has a number of 49, and I know that's something that we're definitely not pushing for. So,
Right.
so I'm going to assume that 106 is probably the highest, and then it goes down from there, and it's not necessarily in order of rank, which makes it a little bit tough to kind of jump around looking at numbers. But
Yeah, that's where I thought it was a little odd to have them. The project number orders didn't necessarily make sense to me, but I guess that's a formatting thing that we don't necessarily have to resolve here and now. But
Chris, I got another question. So, and I don't know if Robert even knows this. Either or. All right. So let's say that we pick one of these items to move forward with. Just for all purposes, the first one, Atchison Park Trail improvements. So there is general funding set aside for the ICP, correct?
No. I'm sorry. My dogs are going crazy right now. I apologize.
Right. So how would that process go then if we went to the board and asked for $300,000 to expand or to do the rehabilitate and create new construction for those paths?
Sure. So the CIP, a good way to look at it is truly as an aspirational list of things that are prioritized. And so how they're ranked or what specific number is attached to it in this is not necessarily the specific thing. Isn't what is important is that it's here. And if you guys decided in 1 year that you wanted to pursue a project that is $300,000, you would do it the exact same way you do it for the ice rink. You would just go ask for it. The CIP is intended to serve as a planning document so that, if the 11 Mile Park, if the $2,300,000 was important, they would plan it out over 5 or 4 years and say, we're going to set aside this much each year to try and get close. And then if it was off by a little bit, then the board would come up with ways to fund the rest of it. And so, what's on this list is not necessarily going to happen, and it's not funded this year, and it's not funded on the year that's listed out here. It's a planning document to try and get to those funds by that year.
Well, and another question to follow that up with. So if the money's not there, this is an earmarked project, meaning that this is our wish list over the next few years, 5 years, to get some of these things done, then when asking for the monies, realistically, then we should be asking at the beginning of the budget then of the season, correct? Like January, February, looking at what we'd like to do possibly for next summer so that they can allocate that money as a line item budget in the budget, correct? Am I thinking wrong?
No, that's not wrong. But what I would say is that, it's unlikely that they're going to fund a $300,000 project in one budget year, so it may be appropriate to say we want to do this in whatever 2022. So if you could fund $75,000 each year until we get to that total so that we can pursue it in that 2022 or 2023 year is how this would work.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So the Huron Valley Trail, I guess resurfacing, rehabilitation, whatever we're calling it. I know there is some activity going on there. And the phases, it was basically just, I think, splitting our total distance into different chunks so we weren't doing the entire distance in 1 year. Those to me make sense as something to do, so we don't have the things we've already provided deteriorating to such a condition that they become unusable. Does anybody have anything different to say about those three?
Well, no, but Robert, going back to what Chris just said, shouldn't we, when it says total project cost, shouldn't we put down the least amount that we need for each phase at the minimum amount per year. So then that way it's more attainable, or we have better shot of that.
So that, I mean, that is what they did basically here.
So
yeah,
that's what it is still.
if I
500?
could jump in,
Oh, okay.
if I were you guys, I wouldn't necessarily worry about the total project cost. I would trust Brian and Leslie and the admin team to kind of closely reflect what the township feels is the right estimate. If you guys think the Huron Valley is appropriate, just note that. But it's really not your guys' responsibility to lower cost in the hopes that it will happen. I think having in this plan is good enough.
Well, and based on that logic, Chris, then okay, should we be going after, if we really want to fulfill things off this list, based on what you've seen with the township, should we be going after bigger line item cost projects or smaller ones?
I think that the most appropriate thing is just to look at the items on this list and decide if they're ones that you want, and then take votes on if there's anything you want to request to add to the list.
Okay.
I don't think anything, I don't think adding or removing anything is more likely to make it happen. I think it's supposed to be a true reflection of the goals that you guys want to pursue.
Right.
So in like Safety Town, if we voted to take that off, we would, that's our vote, correct? Even though that's something that a township official wants on there.
Yeah, and you guys could certainly request that. I don't know that it would actually be removed from the plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
In fact, I think it's unlikely that it would be removed.
Yes.
I would bet my firstborn that it would not be removed.
Again, I'm just picking on Patty because I know that's always there. So.
Yep.
All right. So given that we started talking about that one, as said, I think we just kind of have to leave that as what it is. The other general comment, I guess, about these is on the years. I guess, again, that's maybe something that is too into the weeds, but some of the years on here seem surprising to me, but be that as it may. The 11 Mile Park line, ignoring the cost because I know that keeps fluctuating, and Leslie has the best guess of what it will be. It's on here as a 2022 goal. I think, we should definitely leave it on the list, because we have that land. We've been promising people we're going to do something with it. I just.
Yeah, but Robert, let me ask you a
general-
question. It goes back to what Jenny said a few minutes ago. There's no Friends of the Park. The board hasn't met in over 2 years. There's no plans at all that I could see from the township to move forward on this. And the overall cost keeps going up, not down, for anything that they want to really do on it. Why have this in here when, for all practical purposes, it's going to be up to them what they want to do with it, not us.
That's kind of what I was gonna get to in a second, was that with it being on here as 2022, I guess I wonder what is it that's going to have changed between where we've gotten stuck between now and then. A lot of the problems that I was seeing us hit are large things that are inherent to the site, and getting around them involves a lot of regulatory steps or significantly higher costs. And do we need another park? Yes. Do we have that park, that site acquired and slated for this? Did we do a lot of planning on it? Yes. But and granted, the CIP may not be the place for this, but I think we need to have a serious discussion or examination of the viability of that project compared to some alternatives at some point, because like we were saying with the community center, it's something that's on here that people are going to look at and have some sort of expectation, even though, yes, the being on the CIP doesn't mean it's going to happen. A citizen looking at this document, it's going to be something that they're going to have some level of expectation that it might reasonably happen. And I question how feasible this actually is to occur for that cost on that timeline.
That was my concern is, once you write this stuff down, people are going to think it's gospel and in stone and are going to, blast in years to come why things aren't being done.
I mean, we already get enough.
For 11 miles specifically, you're right, Robert. I mean, we could plan a bazillion different things on that site, but the site is the site, and the barriers that site's creating are not going to go away. So whether we decide we're going to put a community center on there or the sports fields like we were talking about, because really there's not a lot of buildings, so to speak, that we're looking at 11 Mile Park. It's fields with the bathroom pavilion and an amphitheater, and it's not like it's a structure, but no matter what goes on that property, you're going to have the issues with the drainage. You're going to have issues with getting onto the site. You're going to have issues with overall traffic. So I guess if we don't keep 11 Mile Park at 11 Mile Park, what does the township do with this property, knowing just making it something to get to do something with has a very large price tag? I have no problem leaving 11 Mile Park on there. I'd love to see the park there. I'd love to see it move forward. Do I think it's going to happen at $2.3 million in 2022? No, but if a citizen actually goes and reviews this document and sees that and then gives us a call in 2022 as to why it's not there, I don't know that saying that this is just a planning guide is going to satisfy, it's on the list, so why aren't you doing it kind of remark.
Right. So I don't know what the appropriate answer is. But yeah, those are basically my concerns as well.
Would it be more feasible just to push it back to 2024, just to give everyone more time to readjust and consider?
Or would it be better just to change the project type, that it's not a new construction, that it's an evaluation of a feasibility evaluation or land feasibility for whatever purpose?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. Why don't we can always change it from 11 Mile Park, because I understand where Jenny's coming from and I respect what she's saying. If we don't have that in there, if we leave it in there, the residents are going to say, well, see, that's supposed to be where the park is. But at the same time, going to all the meetings like we did, Robert, like you and I did, we know that that's going to be a township call anyways because of all the structural problems that exist there already. Maybe changing it to 11 Mile development or future land use, saying something along those lines, so that way it implies that we can have a park or whatever we could do over there. Because again, going back to it, there's no friends of the park. There is no plans for there's no plans for anything to be done over there. And at one point, this board was asking for the board to be removed. And I think that I still would love to have it removed, because it's misleading to the residents driving by there.
Yeah. So I guess, we could try and shift the language on this, maybe to temper people's expectations. I get maybe two different ways. We could go with, 11 Mile site development to possibly say, well, we don't know if it's going to be the park we designed that's going to go there. Or we could shift the other way and say, we want to have an additional park site brought online, it may or may not be at that spot. Or we just leave it and maybe have to try and push out the date or something to say, I don't know if we're really that confident it's going to happen there that soon. Those are kind of the three approaches I think we could maybe take with this. Preferences?
I think the 11 mile site development, because we have to figure out what to do with it. Otherwise, nothing will happen with it. It'll just sit there. We have to decide if we're just going to cut loose or we're going to do something with it.
Right. I mean, I don't think we can get rid of this line because it is something that we have a lot invested in, and it's something that other people in the township administration definitely have their eyes on. So that was Lynn's thought. Aaron, which way would you handle this?
No, I agree. I like the idea of the fact that you aren't certain. There are a ton of barriers that, you know, normal citizens reading this are not going to be aware of, but the sign is an issue. The sign's been up there for a long time with a lot of expectations. And I agree that if we change it, the wording specifically, it would help to quell some of those expectations for sure.
Okay. Jenny?
Yeah, I think if we kind of loosen up the language and move the date out, I think leave it on because I'd like to see something happen there, but maybe if it's not quite so set in stone specific, that might work out.
Chris? Final thoughts?
Everybody's kind of said what I've already said and echoing. I think that if we take out the park and put in something site development plan, it accommodates two things. One, that we're not saying that the park can't go there and we won't help support it, nor possibly even a small construction, a small construction of a community center even. So it's, I think we should rechange the wordage. If you guys want to push back the year, that's fine. I mean, I think it's unrealistic that we're going to be able to do anything by 2022 with it, but you know, to everybody else's point, we should change the wordage and then just kick back out the year some. That's what I would vote for, but
Okay.
Whatever you guys want to do.
Right. Chris Madigan, do you want to say anything about this after all of that? Do you see that having any, like?
I mean, you guys, you know, know how important this project is to everybody. You know, I'm happy to request for, you know, on your behalf that this change and that the timeline gets pushed back. I have no idea, you know, if the planning commission will be on board with that because ultimately it's their decision. But if
that raises a question that I have too, I guess, when this,
sure.
So this goes to the planning commission, but is it simply a planning commission document, or does it go to the planning commission who then sends it to the board? Yeah, so the state law really puts this in the hands of the planning commission, and ultimately it goes to the board. It does, but the ones who craft what this looks like most is the planning commission, if that makes sense. Okay. Yep.
Why is the planning commission here?
Well,
I mean,
you know,
why don't we have a liaison from there so they can report? Because
we used to, but
I know, but it's kind of upsetting that they're going to get a sheet of paper and just look at this and just, they're going to, I mean.
Yeah. So what I would say is that this is typically how it happens. Now, obviously Lyon doesn't have a parks department, but if they did, the person who leads it would be putting this spreadsheet together, or at least a draft of it before it looked like this. And giving it to the, you know, essentially Brian and Leslie who are drafting it for approval by the planning commission. The planning commission is involved at the end. It is the different departments who put forth their priorities before planning commission input.
So wait a minute, this goes through the department heads first?
Well, yeah. So you know, there's a park section. And there's a public services section, fire department, police department, and the heads of those departments are the one who work with their staff and Brian and Leslie to come up with a list that then goes to the planning commission. It's no different than what you guys are doing here right now.
Okay, so then, okay, all right, that's fine, that's fine. So their input strictly on an impact of what the project is, not what their opinion of it is, correct?
Yeah, so again, it is supposed to be, these are supposed to be your priorities for spending going forward, that are projects that are bigger than 1 year's budget line. And so, you know, whatever their a ladder truck, a new fleet of service cars, a new air conditioner for city or township hall. It's just supposed to be your priorities that are on a level that are beyond just, you know, what the ice rink costs.
Right. So, all right. Let's move on then for a bit here to try and round this out. Property acquisition. I think we leave this on here. I mean, whether it's actually going to happen, I think this is one of those things that's just, it has to wait for the opportunity. But I'd like to keep this around. The phase 1 is looking at expanding our current park site, and the phase 2, which I guess they're not necessarily like ordered phases, it's just kind of 2 separate pieces. But the other one is not really looking at any specific site, just kind of keeping an eye out for new area that we could acquire it and use. Anybody have any questions or comments on those 2? Oh, okay. 10 Mile Road bike paths. I'm assuming this is kind of the logical continuation of what we did on 11 Mile this last year, where we've got gaps and we're trying to fill them in. And I like that. Questions or comments on PK 0009?
Robert, on the on that, is there a chance that the funding for that could come from the sidewalk?
Yeah, that is where it would come from first in all likelihood. Right, Chris?
Okay.
Oh, it's actually on there. At Sidewalk and Bike Path Development Fund is listed as the funding source.
Oh, I didn't see it down there. Okay, thank you.
Yep. And there is also related to that one, there is this map here that shows, you know, where the gaps are that would be trying to fill in. And nice to see that this is updated to show what we completed along 11. The trailhead, this one is one that I definitely would like to see happen. It may be kind of tied in terms of scheduling to the southeast leg of the ring road, since that's what would provide access to this site. This was supposedly going to be funded at least partially through a contribution from a developer, to be determined how much of that will actually end up being there, but I think it's a good project. When we get closer to this, I think it might be something to kind of reevaluate the details of the proposed trailhead. But I think it's definitely a good thing to have on here. Anybody comments on this one?
Again, Robert, for the funding of this, I thought that the gun shop that went in was supposed to donate the money or donate the land. something.
That's the
like that.
developer I was alluding to. It wouldn't be the land, because the land that this was proposed to be on is part of the original railroad right of way that transferred to the state and then is leased to the township and the other trailway communities. But yes, you're remembering correctly there. All right. Historic preservation acquisition. I know we call out Peter's Barn or a similar historic structure or property. I mean, this got a fairly low rank, so I don't know that it would actually come up. And I know there's been some opposition to the idea expressed by both planning commissioners and other township officials. So I still like the idea of having some sort of historic something line item, though I don't know that it would actually be what we originally intended with this line. Do we want to just leave it, or do we want to kind of reshape it a little bit to maybe be a little more realistic?
I'll speak on it because it's something that's near and dear to me, and I've talked to you about it before and a couple other people about it before. I don't care if we change the wordage of it, historic, whatever, but just food for thought to everybody on this board and anybody who's listening in at home on YouTube. We have no historical preservation at all in Lyon Township, but yet our motto is remember yesterday. And it's kind of a slap in the face to know that we're not honoring yesterday at all. And what I mean by historical preservation, we don't have any sites whatsoever registered with the state or on a national level, or we don't have any placards that you guys probably see from the state. We don't have none of that. In fact, to add a little bit to this, if you've lived here in Lyon Township long enough, you remember that Peter's Barn is one of them in recent years, but the other one that occurred was over on 96 in Milford, and that was the barns that weren't supposed to be knocked down, but they got knocked down, and that was supposed to be historical preservation. Another thing that stands out in recent years that occurred, because no one really cares about historical preservation, look at what happened next door at the Lyon Township Cemetery when they put in the Tim Hortons right there. I mean, it's kind of sad. It looks nice, but it just doesn't. It's just kind of a sad state of affairs that it even got like that. But that's just food for thought. I think that we owe it to the past residents who have lived here, the four founding fathers, and that just to have something that preserves, a few pieces in here. I'm not saying we have to go hog wild, whether it be a historical committee like they got in South Lyon, whether it be just placards that go around town. However we got to do it, we should start with something though. We're growing by leaps and bounds, and not to have anything that protects our yesterday or our past, I just think it's not a good thing for a community that's grown like we are.
Okay. Do you want to leave the Peter's Barn reference specifically, Chris, or?
No, if somebody else has got a better idea, I know history bores a lot of people, but again, our motto, our township motto is, I think it says remember yesterday. And like I said, we don't have any historical preservation at all in the township at this current time. And, whether we leave Peter Barnes on here or not, the township doesn't want any part of it. It's my understanding it's up for sale. We can reword it in any way you want. I would like to see something done though, or keep this line item there, just so that we can approach the board about some type of historical preservation, acquisition, something or anything.
Okay. Lynn, thoughts, anything?
Well, certainly, Irwin Orchard is a big part of this area, but whoever knows what's going to happen with that. It would be nice to have something that we could acquire to at least mark that place when it changes.
That's a great point you bring up, Lynn. That's a great point. I mean, that farm's been there forever and a day, and the, you know, even if just a sign for one day when it does change, because it will eventually, but
Yeah,
that's what I'm kind of alluding to, you know?
Lynn, you cut out a little bit. Which barn are you talking about?
pardon?
Peter's barn or a different one?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with Peter's barn.
Which barn? Which barn did you just talk about in your comment a minute ago?
Oh, I said Irwin Orchard. That's eventually going to change to something. It would be nice if we could
Gotcha.
preserve the, I don't know, the cider mill shop or something, and I don't know.
Gotcha. Yep.
Aaron, anything here?
No, you know, I don't know the area as far as the historical preservation. So, but I couldn't agree more. I mean, if the motto is, you know, honoring yesterday, there's literally no honoring that era. It makes sense to do something with that, yeah, of course.
Okay. Anything else, Jenny?
I'm fine leaving it as is.
Okay. So I'm gonna suggest that we keep the line, but we remove the Peters Barn reference specifically, so we're not giving false hope to the people currently dealing with that asset. So it would just be acquire a historically significant structure or property to be converted to a township asset. Does
That seems
anybody?
appropriate.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, and then we already talked about striking the community center. So if I'm remembering all of this correctly now, I'm gonna try and make a motion out of this. I'm going to move that we recommend the following changes be sent to the planning commission for inclusion in the final CIP. That the cost on PK 0001, the Atchison Park Trail improvements, be updated to reflect the bids actually received or whatever revised estimate. That the PK 0005 line 11 Mile Park be retitled 11 Mile Site Development and the year adjusted further out, like 2024, and possibly an upward revision of the project cost if the engineer feels that that would be appropriate. And that PK 0011 historic preservation, the Peters Barn reference be stricken so that it is acquire historically significant structure or property to be converted to township asset, and the removal of PK 0012 construct community center.
Said removal of the construction and community center, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so eliminating that whole line.
Yes.
Okay.
So does anybody want to second those changes?
I second.
Okay. Any further discussion or modification from what I just rattled off? No? All right. So roll call vote then. Lynn,
Yes.
Jenny,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
me, yes. Aaron, you'll get your turn soon. All right. So, Chris, I guess if do you need me to write any of that up, or can you just take it back? Very good.
Poor Aaron, I feel bad for you.
Oh, don't feel bad. This is all good. I'm trying to play catch up here.
All right.
All right, so going on then to 10F, the ice rink. I brought this up during our report at the last Board of Trustees meeting, and looking for answers to our question of whether it had to be reallocated or whether the money was still good from the previous resolution, as well as just the decision of were they okay with moving ahead with it for this season or not. And they requested that we add this as an actual agenda item for their September meeting and bring back the documentation that we had previously so they can rehash this. So making you guys aware of that, and I know we talked about it pretty extensively, so I don't think we need to take a lot of time on it, but I wanted to give you guys the opportunity to make or suggest or request any changes to what we had planned for last winter.
Still going to be the same thing, right? One big one.
That was
Okay.
my thought, was that we would just represent exactly what was presented and say, this is what we were going to do. Do you still want to do it? Do you want any changes? And go from there.
No, I'm in agreement with that. I thought that's what we talked about last time too. I'm looking at my notes here, and that's what I thought we.
Yeah, I believe it was. I just, since we had the gap in time, I figured I would check back and just make sure everybody was still on the same page there.
Okay.
Aaron, just so to catch you up, we had put together a idea to put a ice rink into Ashton Park. It was a single rink that we would go ahead with and try out for the first season, and then it's a kind of a modular system, so we could potentially add bigger rinks or make 2 rinks or whatever in the future. We just we had it all approved in costs, but we ran into logistical issues with the weather and how we were going to get it filled and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So the only thing that I know you guys have talked about since was our original proposal did not include anything like warming or anything like that. It was just the rink, the mats to walk on your skates from the pavilion to the rink, and I believe a light. So, all right.
Hey, Robert, before we go on, I'd like to talk about the website, because I'd like to ask Chris if he could do something.
Oh, yes, sorry, we did
No,
go
it's
ahead of
fine.
that.
I apologize for being late. I was tied up with work. So, Chris, I was wondering if there's a question you could get answered for us. And that is if you could find out who I need to go through, because I've had 2 or 3 different people tell me they're going to call me back and haven't. And if the board wants to talk about it, we can. But if you go to every other site on the Lyon Township Board, all of them have a site where they can email to a general email, or they can email to each individual board member. With the updates that we made, there's no reason why we shouldn't be, since we have our own spot in it, on the community, I guess the community website for Lyon Township. There's no reason why we shouldn't be entitled to the same. Even if it's just a general mailbox that Robert can get into and just see and, get those emails. It might make it a lot easier for community participation. A number of the other communities around us do that with their Parks Board, whether it be a township or a city. And I know there's a difference, but it's still, they all have it. So it's something I'm wondering if it's possible you could try to help us with, or is that something that, would I be better off just continuing to,
Yeah, I can. I don't have control of the website, but I am sure that I can find the staff member who is most appropriate to do that, and I don't think it should be a problem.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah.
And
no
what I'll do is
problem.
I'll shoot you an email like in a few days then just to see where we stand, because I've been talking about doing this for a little while now and it's just getting to a point where it's like, all right, what do we do? You know?
No problem.
All right, thank you.
That's great. It was a little frustrating, just to add, when I was trying to get information about this board and trying to contact Robert. I couldn't find any information to contact just this particular entity, and I had to reach out to his campaign email. So it makes complete sense that there would be a streamline to this board.
Well, one of the other things too, Aaron, that's come up over the past is how do we get people to come to our meetings and that? And a lot of people have kids, 2-income families, all that. And if you don't have that, you got other obligations. And with that being said, Jen's on the board, she's on the school board, so she meets a lot of nights. And it'd just be easier to have an email system and just be allowed to do what the other board members are allowed to do on their boards, and or even just a general mailbox like you were saying, so that Robert can get in there, we can get in there and look at it, you know?
All right. So that brings us then to 11A, new business, East Baseball Field needs. I believe, Chris, you asked for this to be added at the end of last month, if I'm remembering right.
Me?
I think, isn't that how this got on here?
If it's about the dog poo, no, it wasn't.
No, the east hill. The ones that are in disrepair.
I don't know anything that you're talking about. It wasn't me.
We talked about perhaps looking into the field, everyone going in to see what sort of condition everything was in.
No, I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah. I apologize. No, well, the field's in the back of the Atchison Park there. Robert had asked if you could go take a look at it. I don't know if anybody did or didn't, but they look like something out of Beirut in '84. I mean, I'm just trying to make a joke of a bad situation, but they're horrible. And yeah, there they are. There's some pictures. I know Robert said he had some pictures.
I ran up there today, actually. And
okay. You guys, Robert, we could start right here. Here's a good example. This is what I was talking about, Lynn, when you were talking about it last time, or Jenny. You got some spots like this photo right here that shows the fence being straight, but then you got other spots like right here where the actual stands, that they didn't fall apart. They've sunk into the ground. You can see how uneven the ground is right there, where it's sunk down, like there and over here, where over where the fence line is. And this is the better spots that he took photos of. There's actually other spots where the cement is pushed up 2 or 3 feet in the air. So I don't know if you got those, Robert, or not, but
I don't remember what I got. I was running around real quick.
Okay. The other thing too that goes on is and if you can stop right there, Robert, for a second, I want to show this to you guys. What's going on is because they don't mow anywhere through here, anywhere in that whole background, and that's kind of all overgrown. That's what Nicole is going to speak about whenever she could get a chance to attend our board meeting, is that she has to buy special tick-proof clothes and boots. And it's just not in those areas. It's up front where the kids would be playing, and that it's even up there. As I stated a couple times already, I got out and walked in what was just ankle-deep grass, got back into her car. She was showing me around some different things that she had concerns with, and this was one of these areas. And it was, I had 2 or 3 ticks just on my pant legs. If you're a mother or you're a father or you bring your kids up there to play, why would you do that if you know that we have a tick problem? And then we really do. I'm not exaggerating it. It's that bad. Again,
this was a really weird one because someone mowed, but they mowed just like part of it.
Well, that's how it is. That's what my other complaint is, Robert. If you went to the back side of it, you would see where they mowed like a strip 2 feet off the path, but then left it and it's all overgrowing. It's 4 feet high sometimes.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's the stand. So it's like we've got usable equipment out there that's not being used. Like here's this perfectly fine bike rack that's just sitting there by what I would call illegal dumping. You've got, I mean, we've got benches there, but they're some of them are definitely twisted from the shifting. This I thought was weird. There's a phone line out there. But yeah, the whole parking lot is, you know, perpetually shifting, and that's just the reality of the site. But I don't know if, you know, even if we were to go and just mill up some of that area and not have huge heaving pavement sections and instead just have it back to gravel, could be an improvement. Like here, for example.
There you go,
we've
right
got-
there. And that's the top, right? Right.
yeah,
Rob?
yes, this is the top of
Right,
the east hill.
That's what I wanted Lynn and Aaron to see right there. This, with the previous picture, he's down at the bottom. And if you go up to the top where that hill started going to the left up, this is the top of it. This gap that you're seeing right here in the far back, that's actually, and I'm not exaggerating this, that's probably a 2 to 3 foot wide gap. You wouldn't want to take a smaller car over that gap. And it's getting worse. The first one that you're seeing, they did something to it at one point or another because it's filled in a little bit, but it used to be worse than the other one. And as you go further to the back, that's what you're